If you think your cat does nothing the moment you leave the house, think again, because what I captured on hidden cameras inside my home completely changed the way I see my pet forever. The second my front door clicked shut, my cat did not curl up and sleep like the lazy little angel I thought I knew. No. She froze. She listened. She turned her head toward the silence as if the entire house had just become hers again. And what happened next felt less like watching a pet and more like discovering a secret intelligence living beside me all along. For days, I set up cameras in the living room, kitchen, hallway, bedroom, and near the front door, expecting maybe a few naps, a couple of stretches, maybe some random zoom eyes. But what I found was a private ritual, a hidden life, and a pattern of behavior so deliberate, so eerie, and at moments so emotional, that I genuinely sat there staring at the footage in disbelief. Because my cat wasn't just wandering. She was performing a routine. A system. A silent patrol. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. The footage begins only 30 seconds after I leave. She walks to the door and stays there, not meowing at first, just staring. Not for a second. Not for a cute little dramatic moment. For almost an entire minute. That kind of stillness is what unsettled me the most. It looked like she was waiting, but it also looked like she was calculating. Scientists say cats are deeply attached to territory, scent, and routine. Their world is built less on clocks and more on patterns, smells, and predictable change. So when I leave, my absence is not just emotional, it is environmental. The energy of the house shifts. The rhythm breaks. And my cat seems to notice it instantly. Then she sniffs the bottom of the door, walks in a tight half circle, and begins moving through the house room by room like a tiny detective inspecting a crime scene. The living room first. Then the kitchen. Then the bedroom. Always in the same order. It was as if she had inherited the house the second I disappeared and needed to confirm that every inch of it still obeyed her rules. And here's where it got strange. Every single day, after the patrol, she jumped onto the couch, stared directly into the window, and remained there watching the outside world in complete silence. Cars passed. Shadows moved. Birds landed. She barely blinked. This was not boredom. It looked like surveillance. Biologists often explain this kind of behavior as environmental monitoring. Cats are both predator and prey by evolutionary design, which means their nervous system is built to scan, anticipate, and evaluate constantly. Even in a safe home, that ancient wiring remains. The domestic cat may sleep on a soft blanket, but somewhere deep inside, its brain is still reading movement, light, threat, and opportunity. That is why a rustling bag can trigger a sprint and a flickering reflection can become a matter of national security. Watching the footage, I realized my cat wasn't being weird. She was being ancient. But then came the moment that truly shocked me. Around 20 minutes after I left, she returned to the hallway mirror. At first I thought she was just passing by. Instead, she stopped, sat down, and stared at her own reflection for so long that I actually rewound the clip to make sure nothing else was happening. Then she stood on her back legs, placed one paw against the glass, and tilted her head slowly left, then right. It looked almost human. Not because she recognized herself like we do, but because it felt like she was investigating another presence layered inside the house. Philosophers have obsessed over the meaning of being watched, and this is where the footage became almost surreal. Jacques Derrida once reflected on the unsettling experience of being seen by his cat, realizing that the animal is not merely an object in our world, but a subject looking back at us, defining us from its own perspective. Watching my cat study the mirror, then later stare directly into the camera lens, I had the disturbing feeling that I was no longer the observer. I was the one being studied. I had installed hidden cameras to discover my cat's secrets, but what the footage revealed instead was this terrifying possibility: maybe my cat had always been running observations on me. As the hours passed, the mystery only deepened. There were bursts of speed so sudden they looked supernatural. One moment she was lying perfectly still in the center of the rug, and the next she exploded down the hallway like something invisible had chased her. If you've ever seen your cat do this at night and called it zoom eyes, the scientific explanation is less random than it seems. Cats are crepuscular, meaning they are naturally more active during dawn and dusk, when their ancestors would hunt most effectively. Stored energy, instinctive predatory rehearsal, and sensory stimulation can all combine into these intense sprinting episodes. But on camera, stripped of music and laughter, it felt eerie. It felt like she was responding to signals I couldn't perceive. A sound too high for human ears. A flicker too subtle for human eyes. A pressure in the house that belonged to her world, not mine. And maybe that is what frightens us most about cats. They move through familiar rooms as if they contain hidden dimensions. Then something happened that I honestly wasn't prepared for. She climbed onto my bed, turned in 3 circles, and lowered herself onto the exact spot where I sleep. Not the center. Not the warmest blanket. My spot. And then, after a few seconds, she began kneading the sheet slowly with both paws. If you've owned a cat, you know this movement. It's soft, rhythmic, almost trance-like. Veterinarians and behavior experts link kneading to comfort, scent marking, and kittenhood memory, a behavior rooted in nursing and security. In other words, beneath all the mystery, there was tenderness. Beneath the patrols and the surveillance and the strange mirror rituals, there was attachment. She missed me. Maybe not in the dramatic, dog-like way people expect from pets, but in the feline way, subtle, private, dignified, and heartbreakingly quiet. She didn't collapse into panic. She preserved the house. She checked the borders. She occupied my scent. She maintained the world until I returned. And that's where Aristotle strangely enters this story. Aristotle believed repeated action shapes the structure of behavior, that what we do again and again forms a kind of embodied order. My cat's hidden life was not chaos. It was ritual. Door check. Patrol. Window watch. Mirror inspection. Bed visit. Burst of hunting energy. Kitchen revisit. Door return. Every day, almost the same sequence. Not mindless repetition, but pattern with purpose. Watching it unfold, I stopped seeing her as random and started seeing her as disciplined. Not disciplined in the human moral sense, but in the biological sense, where routine becomes a survival technology. Habit is not laziness. Habit is intelligence compressed into repetition. And yet Aristotle explains only the pattern, not the force behind it. For that, strangely enough, Schopenhauer comes closer. He wrote about the world being driven by an underlying will, a blind striving present in living beings beneath rational language. That may sound dramatic, but if you've ever looked into a cat's eyes when it locks onto a moving shadow, you know exactly what he meant. There is something older than thought in that gaze. Something pure. A directed force. In my footage, I saw that will everywhere. In the patience before the pounce. In the precision of each footstep. In the absolute conviction with which she guarded spaces I didn't even know mattered. My cat wasn't wasting time while I was gone. She was enacting her nature with total commitment. And then came the creepiest clip of all. Late afternoon. The light in the living room had changed. The house looked dimmer, almost blue. My cat was sitting beneath the table, motionless, facing the camera in the hallway. For 12 full seconds, she did not move. She just stared directly into the lens. Not past it. Into it. I know some people will laugh and say, it's just a cat looking around. But when you're alone, when you've watched hours of footage, when you've seen the routines and the patterns and the silent intelligence behind those eyes, that moment hits differently. Because it feels like recognition. Like she knew the house had grown another eye. And maybe that is the final secret of this entire experiment. We think hidden cameras reveal what animals do when humans are absent. But what they really reveal is how limited human attention is when we are present. My cat did not transform into a new creature when I left. She simply revealed the version of herself that my busy, noisy, human-centered life was too distracted to notice. By the final day of recording, I no longer felt like I was collecting funny pet footage. I felt like I was watching a roommate, a guardian, a philosopher in fur. A creature moving between science and mystery. Biology explains the patrols. Instinct explains the hunting bursts. Scent explains the bed. Routine explains the sequence. But explanation does not erase wonder. In fact, sometimes it deepens it. Because the more we understand cats, the stranger they become. They are soft, but not simple. Loving, but not obvious. Domestic, but never fully tame in spirit. And maybe that is why we are so obsessed with them. A cat is a reminder that not everything close to us is fully known. Some beings share our homes while still keeping one paw in the wild and one eye on a reality we cannot enter. So yes, I set up hidden cameras in my house expecting a joke, a meme, a cute video. What I got instead was a revelation. My cat is not lazy. She is observant. She is not random. She is ritualistic. She is not cold. She is careful. And when I leave this house, she does not simply wait for me to return. She becomes the silent keeper of everything inside it. She listens to the walls. She follows the light. She guards the scent of home. And every now and then, she stares straight into the camera as if to say, "You wanted to know what I do when you're gone." The better question is, what do you think you know about me at all?